Hey guys, what's up? My name is Rachel and welcome back to my channel, Reading with Remy. Today I'm bringing you my winter wrap-up for the year of 2020. I have not been on BookTube in a while, if you've noticed. I haven't posted, except for my Owls TBR, which I'll leave linked down below because I'm proud of it, since 2018, which is not good. Things have happened, life happens, but I'm back now. I have recently found myself with a lot more time due to things like COVID and other things. So I'm back to reading. So I'm gonna try and do monthly wrap-ups going forward, but for now we're gonna start off with a winter wrap-up just to kind of get you guys caught up on where I've been. I read a lot of really good books at the beginning of the year. I'm doing way better than I did last year as far as reading. Last year I read 14 books, so not a banner year for me, hence why I didn't film anything. This year I've read 23 books, which is a major improvement. I'm currently 12 books ahead of schedule for my reading goal, I want to say, which is crazy. I think I'm gonna have to bump up my reading goal because if I keep on this momentum, I'm gonna crush it in like a month and a half. Hopefully, we'll see, fingers crossed. So today, I'm just gonna show you anything I've read from January to March. There are a couple books that I've already read in April, but I'm gonna save that for my April wrap-up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and jump into it. I'm gonna do them for the most part in the order I read them this year. Most of you are probably gonna know what these books are, so I'm not gonna give a super in-depth synopsis. I'll just kind of give you a general idea of what I thought of it and the rating that I gave it. So I'm actually going to start with the second book that I read this year, and I'll get back to the first one I read a little bit later in this wrap-up, and you'll kind of see why I waited. So the second book that I read this year was Autobiography by Christina Lauren. This is my first experience with this author-writing duo, and I have to say I'm very impressed. This was an LGBTQ+, I probably said that wrong and I'm so sorry if I did. This is one of those novels, and I really enjoyed it. It focuses on a boy who is gay, but he won't come out because he lives in a Mormon community and he's afraid of the backlash surrounding that. And he falls in love with the head of the church. He falls in love with his son, and of course there's obviously some conflicts with that. So this is just a really cute story about the two of them falling in love and everything that goes with that because of the religious climate that they live in. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars, absolutely loved it. It was super fun, super cute, and it was definitely a great way to start out my reading year. And then I got on kind of like a poetry kick, so I'm gonna rapid fire these real quick because there's not a whole lot you can say about poetry, I feel like. But the first poetry book that I read was The Dark Between Stars by Atticus. This is the second time I've read one of his poetry collections. I can't think of what his first one was, but I've read that one. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I read this back in January. It's really well written. I can see why a lot of people would like it. It only got 3 stars for me because it's just not the type of poetry that I want to read about. I'm not into the romance lovey stuff. It's just not for me. The next poetry book that I read was The Salt in His Kiss. This is by Alpha. This is the first time I've read any of her poetry collections. I enjoyed this one more than I thought I was going to. This one dealt a little more with like self-empowerment, which is what I want to read in poetry. So it was really good. Obviously, it can't be too bad. I tabbed it like to high heaven. So I did give this one 4 out of 5 stars, so a little bit better than The Dark Between Stars for me. Still, I would recommend either of those to anybody who's trying to get into poetry. They're both really good. And the last poetry book that I'm going to talk about right now, there'll be more later, is Love Looks Pretty on You by Lang Leave. This is the second one that I've read by her. I enjoyed this one a lot, also tabbed this one quite a bit, which is how you know I enjoyed it. I gave this one 3.5 stars out of 5 stars. It's very rare that poetry gets less than 3 stars for me, and that it just kind of bounces around in the upper, because I really do enjoy poetry, and I think it's modern poetry anyway is really exciting to read. So this one followed similar themes as the other two, just tragic relationship, fighting your way out of it, and being stronger because of it. So now we're gonna talk about the next book that I read, and I'm actually gonna talk about the first book I read this year and this one at the same time, because they're in a series together. So I read the first 2 books in the Thrawn trilogy by Timothy Zahn. These are really old Star Wars books, like original canon before The Force Awakens came out. These are no longer canon, unfortunately, which I feel like they should be because they're so much better than the movies that we have now. This would have been a better movie than what we got based on the storyline. So this follows Luke, Leia, and Han, and all of the original Star Wars gang navigating life after the Empire has fallen, or after the Emperor's death, when the remnants of the Empire are trying to survive, basically, And it's all surrounded on a conflict created by General Zahn, which is one of the fleet admirals from the Imperial Fleet, and he's a nasty guy. Like, let me tell you, that is how you write a villain. Both of these got 5 out of 5 stars. I listened to both of these on Audible, and I currently have third and final one on Audible as well, but I'm kind of focusing on my Owl's TBR, so I haven't got to it yet, but I'm gonna get to it. I'm very excited to finish this trilogy. Would definitely recommend if you love Star Wars, please read these. I feel like not enough people read these anymore, and they're so good. So that kind of like kicked off like a serious like reading high for me, because those are amazing books. So the next book I'm going to talk about I also really enjoyed was Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. This was my first experience with an adult thriller. And this isn't like a conventional adult thriller. This is very sci-fi heavy. It's mainly a sci-fi. I consider it a thriller. A sci-fi thriller. The main character is a physics professor at a local college. He gave up on his big scientific break to raise a family with the love of his life. And this is all about what would have happened if he'd chosen a different pathway. I didn't see a lot of it coming. Every time something happened, I was like, you gotta be kidding me, really? Seriously? That's crazy. So I'm definitely a huge fan of Blake Crouch's writing. I've heard so many great things about this book, and I'm so glad I finally read it. The next book that I read I no longer have a copy of, and that is Are We There Yet by David Leviathan. This is a contemporary about 2 brothers who take a trip to Italy. They're 2 estranged brothers. Their parents trick them into going to a trip to Italy together, and it's all about them navigating what went wrong in their relationship, why they aren't close brothers anymore, and kind of their journey back to each other. It was really a beautiful story. However, the entire time I was reading it, I was just kind of like waiting for it to be over. I considered DNFing this book several times, and that really breaks my heart because I'm a huge David Leviathan fan. I loved his book Love is the Higher Law, which not enough people talk about. If you haven't read it, please go read it. It's incredible. I'm proud of myself for finally reading it, but it was a little disappointing. I actually ended up giving it 2.5 stars, which is the lowest rating that I've talked about so far in this video, and it just didn't hit the mark for me. The next book that I read also just didn't hit the mark for me. It was one I'd been really anticipating reading. So I recently found this wonderful thing called Scribd. If you have not heard of Scribd, you should please go check it out. It's amazing. So I found Helium by Rudy Francisco? I don't know, one of those two. But this is a poetry book, and it deals a lot with self-identity and stuff like that, and I thought I would enjoy it more, but it really just fell flat. I didn't like the writing, I didn't like the way he structured his poems, I didn't like how he tried to make it a political statement. I just wasn't a fan of this book at all. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I understand why some people would enjoy it, but it just was not for me. The next book that I read is The Dream Thieves by Maggie Stiefvater. This is book 2 in the Raven cycle. I read The Raven Boys 2 years ago, which is embarrassing, I know. But I finally picked this one up on Scribd. Again, Scribd is amazing, please check it out. This seriously saved my reading year. I really enjoyed this one. This one focuses more on Ronin. It's about a group of 5 kids, 4 boys who go to Aglionby Academy, and then a girl. Focuses more on a different character than the first one did. It's very dark. It took a grittier tone than the Raven Boys did, but it was still super enjoyable. So it was really good. I'm super excited to continue this series. It was a great continuation, a good second book. I feel like a lot of times second books suffer, like second book slump. This is not the case with this one. Super excited to see where this goes. And I did give this 5 out of 5 stars. Loved it. Can't wait to keep reading the series. Then I have 2 poetry books in a row that I don't own copies of. I read them on ebook format on Scribd. And the first one is Sea of Strangers, also by Ling Leave. I honestly don't remember what she focused on in this one. It was really like unmemorable to me. 3 out of 5 stars. So it's just middle of the road mediocre. The next one that I read was The Rose That Blooms in the Night by Ali Michelle. And I ended up giving this one 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed this one a lot, but again, just not blowing me away like some other poetry books I've read, so just kind of, it was really beautifully written, just nothing that really like hit home with me and made a lasting impression, which I feel like good poetry should do. And the next book I read was Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. I love Adam Silvera, like adore him. I have read They Both Die at the End and History Is All You Left Me. Loved both of them, so when I heard that he was taking a crack at fantasy, I had to try it. I waited a very long time in line for this arc at YALLFest. Totally worth it. I didn't manage to read it before it came out. I'm really bad at doing that. but I did read it in the year that it came out, and that's all that matters, so I'm proud of myself there. I don't really know how to describe this one. It's a fantasy story about two brothers, mainly, in this world where there are people who are born superheroes and people who become superheroes by using, like, blood magic, basically. So there's conflict between those two sides of the magic system, and so it's just tensions are very high in this book, and basically a giant conflict breaks out between the people who use blood magic for their powers and the people who are born with powers. And our protagonist and his brother get kind of caught in the middle of all of that. One of them ends up with powers that they didn't plan to have through blood magic that they didn't perform, and it all just kind of creates tension because the brother that doesn't have powers through blood magic wants powers, and the guy who has them does not. So of course there's all that conflict as well. It was just really good. It left on a series cliffhanger, and now I'm really mad that I read the first book in a series when it came out, because now I have to wait even longer for the sequel. So I'm kind of mad at myself, kind of mad at Adam Silvera for making me want the second one so bad. So yeah, just use caution when you read this one if you love Adam Silvera, because you will get stuck waiting for the sequel like I am, and it's agonizing. So just keep that in mind. And I did give this book 4.5 out of 5 stars, so it was really, really good. The only reason why it lost half a star for me is some of the decisions that the brother makes just kind of makes you like want to throw something at him. So there were just some things that irritated me a little bit, but still, really great story. The next book that I read was Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale by Lauren Miracle. I do own this book, but I currently have it loaned out to somebody. I don't have it back yet. This is a graphic novel. It's not really a retelling of Catwoman. Instead, it's more like an origin story of Catwoman, which I really enjoyed. I love the artwork in this. It was super pretty. It was all like purple and dark like undertones, which is a color palette that really appeals to me. So I super enjoyed that. The story was just really great and gripping, although the beginning kind of got me in the feels. It was really sad for a moment. I can't tell you what happened because it's a spoiler, but yeah, it really upset me. And I knew it was coming, and it still upset me. So yeah, but I ended up giving this graphic novel 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read is a poetry book that I also got off Scribd. It's called I Hope You Stay by Courtney Peppernell. She's the author of Pillow Thoughts, which I have not actually read. I started reading it and put it down, and it was actually a friend's copy, and she has since moved several hours away, so I don't have access to it anymore. I don't know if I'll continue it, we'll see. But this is her new one. It just came out this year. I actually really enjoyed it. It was more of a self-empowerment outside of a relationship thing, which is something that really appeals to me. That's my favorite kind of poetry to read because I haven't had any super horrible relationships. I haven't had that many relationships at all, which probably has something to do with it. But still, I really enjoyed this because it was a topic that really like spoke to me. So I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was just really good. I really enjoyed it, and it has an otter on the cover, so like how can you go wrong? Love otters. The next one that I kind of read, kind of not, because I ended up DNFing it, was also a poetry book I got on Scribd. It was Aphrodite Made Me Do It by Trista Matier? I don't know. It's a double E, so I don't know. But I did not like the writing style. I didn't think the poems were like at all put together. It was just, I couldn't read it. Like, it was one that I had really been anticipating, and I almost bought at Target several times, and I'm really glad I read it on Scribd before I bought it because I would have wasted $14. It just was not good for me. The next one that I read, Impossible Music by Sean Williams. This is an ARC that I got 2 years ago at YALLFest. Yeah, 2 years ago at YALLFest. This book came out in July of 2019, so thankfully it was like a later release. So I did read it before its 1-year anniversary, but I've had this ARC an embarrassingly long amount of time. But this is about a young man who loses his hearing due to a stroke. And he is a musician, he loves music, music is his life, and so it's all about him dealing with losing his hearing and losing his ability to listen to music and create music, which is something that's really important to him. So it was kind of slow in some parts, but it was a really like poignant and just powerful message about you may not be able to do what you love in the same aspect, but that doesn't mean you have to give up on what you love completely. It was just a really beautiful story. There was a romance in it, and normally when it's like a powerful subject and they throw a romance in, I get really mad, but I actually didn't hate the way he approached the romance. So it was a really good, powerful story with a really important message, And it was really cool to see kind of like a view into the deaf community and kind of what they deal with. There's lots of ASL in here and explaining ASL signs, which I thought was really cool. And I really enjoyed it. I'm kind of mad that it took me so long to get to it because I did enjoy it, and I almost DNF'd it at one point, and I'm really glad I didn't. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, so again, really enjoyed it. Would definitely recommend. The next book that I read was Stuff I've Been Feeling Lately by Alicia Cook. This one is another poetry book that I got on Scribd, one that I had been eyeing and had never bought. I'm probably gonna go back and pick it up at a store just because of the formatting. It's one that I really would like to have on my shelf. But this is a poetry book. It's split into 2 parts. The first part is a normally written poem dealing with romance and self-love and all kinds of topics. And then in the second half of the book, she takes that poem that she wrote before and does blackout poetry, and it says something different. Just super powerful. I was totally blown away. I did not expect it to be as cool as it was, first of all. Just the format was amazing. And the content was really great, so I really enjoyed it. And I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. Most of that is the formatting, because I've never seen anything like that. And the blackout poetry was super powerful. But the book as a whole is really great, and I would definitely recommend it if you're trying to get into poetry. It was a quick, easy read, easy to understand. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is probably one that, the most controversial that I haven't read yet, that I'm just now getting to. And that is Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is book 1 in the Infernal Devices trilogy, which I'm sure most of you already know. If you don't know what this is about, this is set in the late 1800s of London. It has some steampunk elements. I really enjoyed the characters in it. I read the first 3 books in the Mortal Instruments, didn't super love the characters, so I kind of gave up on those, but I've heard these are better, so I picked it up. I do agree that I like the characters better. I feel like they're more fleshed out, better developed. You can kind of see how Cassandra Clare was growing as a writer when she wrote these. I really enjoyed this. I am already discovering that I am on the opposite side of a lot of people's opinion of the romance that the main character should be with. Speaking of the main character, this follows our main character, Tessa. If she has an object of that person, she can change into them, which is a really cool concept, not something that you see a lot. And I really don't have much else to say about it, just that it's Shadowhunters and Tessa can change shape, and I'm on the wrong side of the love triangle, from popular opinion. So those of you that have read it will know what I'm talking about. I'm sorry, I don't care, I love Jem. Just gonna throw that out there. But I did give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It really blew me away. I was definitely impressed, especially when you compare it to the Mortal Instruments, which I didn't have a good time with. Definitely enjoyed these a lot more. I'm currently reading the second one for the Owls, and I'm hoping I can finish the trilogy this year. I'm trying to be much better about finishing series this year. That is my goal. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed my winter wrap up. I had so much fun reading all these books. I've had a really great reading year so far, and I'm hoping that it continues. We'll see what happens, but hopefully I'll be able to do monthly TBRs from here on out. If not, well, you may see me in a spring wrap up. We'll see what happens. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!